start. So, hey, we're saying, hey, this is Rick, your seat at the table. We are looking at second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Forgotten Realms official game of adventure. Tarantus. I always call it Transis. Tantras by Ed Greenwood, compatible with AD&D and AD&D Second Edition game systems by TSR Incorporated. If you don't know, but Ed Greenwood has a YouTube channel, put out some great stuff revolving around Forgotten Realms and Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, you really would be remiss if you're interested whatsoever in that sort of stuff. You really should go Google Ed Greenwood and on YouTube and see what pops up. You might be surprised. I paid, what is that? $6.95. $6.95 for this particular supplement in 1989. 89. Geez, I would have been 22, 23 when I bought this. Elminster has been murdered. This is actually a part of a series, and they were follow-ups to a series of Forgotten Realms novels that were written during the time of Troubles, if I remember right. So there's a little bit going on. Or maybe I'm thinking a different one. I'm reading a different one too. No, I got to help save Shadowdale from the armies of Zhentil Keep. All right, I'm thinking something else. All right, so what we have here is FRE2 series, and of course the cover is separable, and in this case it makes for a screen if you need to use one for that. On the back page you have a color map of the general vicinity of the setting, and then inside here we have a physical chaos table, which is a very interesting thing. I like this, and I borrowed it on a couple times for some other stuff. So it says the effects described on the table are suggestions only. Blah 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 blah. Bear in mind, however, to play that play will have to go on in the new environment afterwards. Right, so this is like when spells go south. So natural fireworks cause, as in pyrotechnic spell occurs, the air is filled with a ringing, chiming sound that dies away with the fireworks after 1 to 4 rounds. Here's another example. Lashing rain begins, though the air grows warm. Participation lasts for 1 to 10 rounds. Affects a small 80-yard diameter cylinder from the ground area to upper air, and within it, all creatures can understand the speech of all other creatures as if a tongue spell were in operation. So you got the magical chaos table effects going on, and I find these to be interesting in other. So, for example, if you're fond of natural critical ones, or crit 20s, so you have a character who rolls an automatic failure in some people's minds, but they cast a spell and they roll a success chart and it comes off as a nat 1, and so you potentially could turn to one of these charts to roll some unpredictable, unforeseen result of the spell going south, right? I mean, that's just one possibility, but not everybody's into that sort of thing. So, then we have the random encounter table and monsters summary tables. So you get the basics for armor class, hit die, and how many attacks they get, right? So then we move on to the table contents here, and it says prologue, trial and fight, haste, blood, moonlight, hand of Bane, a stormy time of Scardale, gods and assassins, and to be heroes, and so on and so forth. So we go in notes for the dungeon master, how the module is laid out. Yeah, Tantras is the second of a trilogy of modules that describe the strife called by some the Gods' War in the Forgotten Realms. So I wasn't wrong. It was Time of Strife, or pretty close. The module loosely parallels the action described in the Avatar trilogy, Shadowdale, Tantras, and Waterdeep, published by TSR Incorporated. Yeah, and I have all three of those novels, and they're really good novels. If you can get your hands on them, they're worth reading. They're very entertaining. Players should note blah blah blah. So ability checks, the setting, the story so far. In the meantime, general advice, notes on the second edition AD&D rules. This adventure is written using terminology and rules of the second edition canon, but is still easily playable by those who are using the original game material. Some of the more noticeable differences are changes in name only. The term magic user has been replaced by mage for in a few places. The more general designation of wizard, the cleric class is now the priest class, etc., etc. So, I mean, all right. There are some guys that got some fantastic channels out there that go on and on about the physical uh, uh, changes from one edition to the next and just how they affect the play. And we talk levels and mechanics. I'm very interested in all that stuff. I'm just not very articulated at repeating it. And so, I mean, I enjoy watching the Bandit Keep. He does some great stuff. Daddy Rolls One does some great stuff. I have posted links to both of them in my community section at one time or another, I believe. Great if you're into Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but into fantasy settings. They're some really good people to listen to. They've really got their stuff together, and they make sense, right? I'm just saying. There are 8 to 10 out of or eight, and say between 7 and 9 out of a scale of 10, where I run around a 2. And I get you. I'm shooting for a hard 3, though. That's my goal, by God, to get this up to a 3. All right, so Chapter 1, Trial and Fight. The event, the trial. All right, the adventure opens with a trial of any characters who participated in the great battle in the Temple of Thunder that occurred at the end of Shadowdale, the first module in this trilogy. The accused group will include Midnight. Any player characters were present. So, just so you know, Midnight was a young lady, aspiring mage who was also touched by the no. Yes, because she's representing the avatar of the goddess of magic, who was cast out along with all the other gods and goddesses from the heavens during this terrible time of chaos, right? Anyway, so and the player characters, right? At the end of the day, so you got to go through a tile and try to not get killed or end up imprisoned. Then you get rescued by night by a bad guy he has alternate reasons for wanting you guys out. Vent 4, well met by moonlight. Right. Vent fast current to freedoms. Ideal is you escape. You're imprisoned. You escape the dungeon and you escape town to move on. Then we get wreck and ruins. Right. Haste blood. So we get chapter 2, haste blood and moonlight. Right. And this chapter begins the adventurer's boat leaves Shadowdale. The river Ashaba tends to be shallow, about 8 feet deep, and rocky bottom. Normally a placid, easily traveled waterway, the Ashaba is currently feeling the effects of physical chaos. The river is fast flowing, as much as 120 feet per round, and because of its shallowness and rough bottom, very turbulent. The DM should bear this in mind when determining the fates of characters who enter the water, i.e., don't fall out of the boat, man. Don't fall out of the boat. Wrecks and ruins, attack at Asherford, magic in the mist. So you keep traveling down the river, and have these various adventures. So boat continues down the river, become quick and turbulent, and then so and so blah blah, so and so blah blah, and he tells him blah blah, goes on blah blah, right? Yeah. And basically interaction. Some of the interactions here are based off the dialogue from the actual corresponding novel to the module. So that's one of the interesting things about this particular style, is because it's actually being written. Now, some things in the world, for example, let's look at Star Wars: A New Hope. Star Wars: A New Hope was written as a play, a screenplay written for it first. George Lucas wrote down as in a screenplay format, or his idea of one. He did not write a novel and publish it. There's a big difference. And then from the script stuff, they create the script, and then they make the movie that we know. And then a book is published of basically verbatim the script, the movie itself. This is why I can sit there and say, let's say, well, the movie is great, but the book was better. And I will ask, which came first? We look at the recent renditions of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings by Peter Jackson. He did a damn good job. Really good work there. But he deviated numerous times, and in the case of The Hobbit, a lot of times, in order to flesh out enough material to have 3 movies for The Hobbit. But he deviated many times from the novels. So his movies are great, but they were written after the fact. Well, the novels themselves are superior to any movie ever made because they are so in depth and deep and well written. And that was what makes them iconic in my mind. But then what do I know? I'm just I'm just an idiot. So chapter 3, The Hand of Bane. So the idea of the chapter begins with the adventurers leaving the Pool of Yavin, heading eastward down the roaring river Ashaba. They're still in the river, trying to get down. The posse from Shadowdale is purchasing the captive prisoners led by the NPC. Kelmore makes a very slow travel through the woods upon reaching Asherford, hearing the battle, blah, blah. So we got an unexpected visitor, Thelen Roaringhorn. Soon after the doppelganger attack, as night falls, preferably when the party is on the riverbank and not sailing down the river, read the following passage, right? So we got event 3, bloodshed at Blackfeather Ridge. This event occurs when the party traveling downriver towards Feather Falls approaches the bridge. The distance see the low gray lines of a massive stone bridge spanning the river. Blackfeather Bridge. As rushing Ashman sweeps you closer, you also see men standing on the bridge, men in armor. They have bows drawn, aimed at you, arrows ready to fire. Turn the boat, Zerk roars. We're but waiting corpses if we float down onto those shafts. We'll all be slain for sure. Blah blah. Event 4, darkness pounces. So, stormy time at Scardale event, we get to the arrival. This chapter begins with as the Pegasi, after flying all night to get to Scardale at dawn, carrying the adventurers. So somewhere in here, you pick up the Pegasus and they save you. All right, captured PCs reach Scardale without further incident. From the sky, many encampments can be seen on the banks of the Scar. The town itself is a hive of military activity. Armored warriors on griffins patrol the skies. They give the group of Pegasi a wide berth, and the assassins take the PCs down to Harbor Watch Keep. There, the adventurers are separated, chain bound, and all the spellcrafters are treated as described in Chapter 1 and imprisoned. Once again, you're in the dungeon. Yet another wild escape. So we're going to escape the dungeon a second time. At the sign of the sprouting fish. Event number 4, a revelation or 2. Right? Event number 5, blah, blah. Get into blah, 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 blah. Gods and assassins. All through we seek in life. Right? Reunion. It is really does a job of following the novels themselves. All right. Chapter 6. The event into the temple to be heroes. Torm Tantras in the tablet. Said when the PCs have prepared themselves for battle, read the following passage. Elminster looks up from his harp, an instant before any of you can interrupt to tell him you're ready to leave, all prepared to be off for bloodletting, then swords sharp, let's be on our way. Briskly leads away into the streets, seeking the temple of Torm by the straightest route. All right. This chapter begins with Elminster tells the adventurers it's time for them to act. The DM should then allow time for the player characters' discussions and preparations, and then run event number 1. Right, things start to get hairy. I mean, your guys are running with wannabe gods and cast out gods. You got some challenges with you. You really have to watch your P's and Q's. Yeah, so it says here, DM's notes. From the moment the first PC sees this room, the DM should secretly keep track of real time using a watch. After 25 minutes have elapsed, the chanting will rise to a definite climax and then sudden end, and 1 round later, a great crashing noise will be heard from above. Sound of ominous rumbling from outside this chamber will begin. 2 rounds thereafter, the ceiling of the chamber will collapse. Good thing to keep a clock for, right? Yeah. The ringing of the bell. Yes, if it's a begins, the adventurers return from the temple of temple. Elminster's magic will take them straight to the tap room. Always convenient. Event 4, the aftermath. Ending the adventure. And because the adventure kind of has to end in a certain way, because if you're following in the footsteps of the novel, you have to acknowledge that there's a third novel, and so there'll be a third module to go with the novel, and the conclusion should not conclude to the end of the third novel, and with all that wonderful gut stuff that goes with it. So Midnight is touched by a goddess. And in some ways, she's actually unknowingly an avatar or a would-be avatar of a future goddess. So she's going to, at the end of the time of tribute, the time after the Edge of Tam Chaos is over, and the tablets of fate have been recovered and returned to heaven, a new hierarchy for a lot of gods change roles, and she eventually becomes the goddess of magic, right? And he becomes the damn god, and he's an evil SOB too. I think he does. It's that or he dies. I can't remember because there was another guy he used to run around with, and one of the two of them, I think, ends up being Bane. It's Bane that gets. I do believe it's Bane. Maybe Cert gets to be made a god too. Here's Bane, right? Merkel, Torm. I don't know. New magic, excuse me. So we have Hand of Torm, an evocation, Elminster's Fuglant, Apparition, Adjuration. I don't know, I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Yeah. Right. So, what we got here? Fuzan, a really nasty looking tropical, subtropical giant fish, and a little bit of a map of the area. So this is to be the Shadowdale and the vicinity. So this would be the Shadowdale, the village itself, and then the various things going on around the areas. Right? Okay. So that is Transit, second edition, AD&D. I don't know if I have F FE1 and FE2 or not. It's FRE1 and FR3. I have the two, obviously. I don't know if I have the other two. I have the novels. I just can't remember if I bought the other the modules to go with the set. Is what it is. Anyway, I'm Rick. You're not. Till next time.